All right, we're going to continue on with angiosperms, and we're going to look at fruit, form, and function. So a fruit develops from the ovary. It protects the enclosed seeds, and it actually aids in seed dispersal by wind or animals. And a fruit may be classified as dry if the ovary dries out at maturity, or it could be fleshy if the ovary becomes like thick, soft, or sweet at maturity. So those would be the fruits that you are probably a little bit more used to eating. Fruits are classified by their development. So a simple fruit is going to be a single or several fused carpels. An aggregate fruit would be a single flower with multiple separate carpels. And then a multiple fruit would be a group of flowers called an inflorescence. Here we have some examples of fruits. So a simple fruit would be like the pea fruit. So this is the entire pea pod, and then the peas inside are the seeds. An aggregate fruit, here you're looking at a raspberry. And so you've got all these little carpels which make up fruitlets. And so all together we consider the raspberry to be the fruit. And so this is a group of smaller fruitlets kind of contained within one. A multiple fruit, here your example is a pineapple. And so each segment is going to develop from the carpel of one flower. And then I'm kind of blocking it here, but we're looking at an apple. And this is going to be an accessory fruit. And so the seeds are inside where you guys are used to seeing them. And then the actual part that we eat, the apple part, is actually the receptacle. So it's an accessory fruit because you have an accessory structure sort of contained there as well. An accessory fruit, again, is going to contain other floral parts in addition to the ovaries. And so the example there was the apple because like the fleshy part that we eat is actually the receptacle. So fruit dispersal mechanisms include water, wind, and animals. So here we have a coconut being dispersed by water. These are some of the ways that fruits can be dispersed by wind. So you've got the sort of like the whirlybird or winged fruit of the maple. Here we have the sort of parachute looking structure on a dandelion or a tumbleweed. And then they can also be dispersed by animals. So you could have barbed fruits that get sort of caught in the coat of an animal, like the fur coat. When you've got smaller things, so here you have like an ant that's going to carry a seed or a fruit to a nest. Animals can bury seeds. You also, though, have animals that eat seeds and then, or eat the fruit, and you get the seeds in feces. And sometimes that is actually what allows germination to take place because now you have these seeds that are essentially contained in manure, which is a lot of times used as fertilizer. So plants produce sexually, asexually, or both. So many angiosperm species reproduce both ways. Sexual reproduction, again, results in offspring that are genetically different from the parents. You guys know that. And you also know that asexual reproduction results in clones. So you get a generation that is genetically identical to their parents. So some mechanisms of asexual reproduction, you've got fragmentation, and this is going to be the separation of a parent plant into parts that develop into whole plants. And this is a pretty common type of asexual reproduction. In some species, you also have a parent plant's root system can give rise to shoots that will then become separate shoot systems. You have apomixis, which is the asexual production of seeds from a diploid cell. And so now why asexual reproduction? What are some advantages, but also are there any disadvantages? Well, asexual reproduction, which is also called vegetative reproduction, is going to be beneficial to a plant that is found in a stable environment. If you have a parent plant in a stable environment and that parent plant is successful and it's doing well, then making clones of yourself is a good idea. However, asexual reproduction can be a disadvantage if you're looking at a plant that's in an environment that's changing frequently for one reason or another. Sexual reproduction generates genetic variation that makes evolutionary adaptation possible. So you're creating more changes for evolution to work with through sexual reproduction. However, you're also spending a lot of time and energy sort of generating these seeds, making these seeds, and only a fraction of the seedlings are actually going to survive. So it could be seen as a decent amount of wasted energy as well. Now, because plants have different ways of reproducing, and not all plants are going to reproduce asexually. and not all plants are going to self-pollinate. There are some plants that, some angiosperms that have mechanisms to actually prevent that from happening. So they make it either really difficult or even impossible for a flower to self-pollinate. One way this works is with dioecious species, and this is when you have staminate and carpellate flowers on separate plants. So dioecious means two houses, and the two houses would be male and female. So that means that you have your male flowers and your female flowers on separate plants, and so the male and female flowers are not close enough to each other to self-pollinate with that to self-pollinate that one plant. So here we have examples of that. So here we have a staminate flower. Here we have a carpellate flower. And so you essentially don't have the parts on the same flower. So it makes self-pollination rather difficult. Others will have stamens and carpels that mature at different times, or they are arranged in a way that sort of prevents selfing, or that self-pollination. Humans had devised methods for asexual propagation of angiosperms and have been using them for a really long time. So this was one of our sort of keys to agriculture. Most methods are based on the ability of plants to form adventitious roots or shoots. And many kinds of plants are asexually reproduced from plant fragments that we call cuttings. A callus is going to be a mass of dividing undifferentiated cells that forms where a stem is cut, and then it's going to produce the adventitious roots. Then a twig or a bud can be grafted onto a plant of a closely related species or variety. And so that stalk, which is going to be the one that the plant is grafted onto, provides the root system, and then the scion, which is the grafted part, that's going to be the plant that you're trying to grow. What you're looking at here is just how you have undifferentiated carrot cells and how they can actually, you can take those undifferentiated cells and they will differentiate into a plant. Protoplast fusion is used to create hybrid plants by fusing protoplasts and plant cells with their cell walls removed. That's how you get the protoplast fusion. And that is what you're looking at here. All right, so your lecture question for today, what are the advantages to having fruits that can be eaten by animals? So again, kind of talked about this in the lecture, but I want you guys to think about it, answer in your own words, and send me a message through the class website. Thanks, guys.